I wanted to take a moment to talk about some future projects. These projects might take years to complete, but they're something that I want to do. I recently got a shipment of about $300 worth of transformers. So I'll kind of show you what ideas I have to use with those. First of all, let's start with the most probable thing that you'll see the first, and that is this. I recently bought this Fender standalone reverb style transformer from Hammond. This is the 290WX. And sometimes these standalone reverb Fender power transformers can work really well for like a 5-watt amplifier, kind of like your Champ style amplifier. And the thing you need to kind of watch on that is the current on the secondary. I've seen some of these as low as 25 milliamps. That is not going to work because you're going to need about 30 milliamps of current to drive just the plates on the EL 84 or 6v6. So watch out for that. But this appears at 50 milliamps. Seems like it ought to work pretty well. I also have 1 amp of heater current. So that's going to be able to do 1 12AX7 and a EL84 quite well. And then the rest of this is something I've been wanting to do for a while. I've got all in a box here. I've got a Champ style output transformer that I got for really cheap. I think from Mojo Tone, they were having a sale on these. So I was ordering some parts and I picked one of these up. I've got various parts that I've pulled out and surplus from other things. So what I want to do is make a parts bin Vox AC4. It's going to be using the top boost channel. Not going to go with an EF86 on this, but a parts bin Vox AC4 style amplifier. And I'm going to try to reuse some hardware I have laying around. This is the cover for a internet router, or I guess it's an old hub that I bought for $1 at a surplus store, and then it kind of died on me. And so I'm going to cut this up to make a traditional Vox style chassis that I can mount all these parts in. And I've modeled it all up into my 3D model, and it looks like it's going to work. So this is likely going to be the project that you see first. Next, we have this box. This box, what I want to do is make a Vox AC10 style amplifier. And for this amplifier, the idea is Vox has the AC10 C1, and I really don't like the way that they implemented that amplifier. Instead of the first input stage being tubes, they went with transistors. There's transistors throughout the circuit. There's also a digital reverb that's crammed in there. And there's a better way that they could do it. I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I think there's a better way. So here what I have is a Blues Junior power transformer that I picked up from Antique Electronics Supply or Amplified Parts for $50, which is a really good price for a power transformer. And this looks like it's going to spec really well for a 10 to 15 watt transformer. It looks like it's maybe a little bit small for that application, so it'd work better for a 10 watt amp. And so we're going to see how well this works. This is a output transformer that I pulled out of a old Hammond organ. And the one downside to this is it only has an 8 ohm output. We'll talk about how that might be a problem in just a moment. And then finally, I have a choke that I pulled out of some old piece of audio equipment. I think this is about, I've got written on it, I think it's around 270 ohms. I have no idea how many henries it is. I used one of these in a Vox AC15 build, and it worked really well. But because this is a budget style build, I'm not sure if I'm going to use this. I might just pop a 500 ohm resistor in there and see how that works, because the AC10C1 does not have a choke. And to house that, I have this leftover Hammond project. You can see I've kind of put an idea of where the transformers might go on here. I've also started to 3D model this, but I haven't gotten very far on it. And so this is going to be my AC10 chassis that I'm going to work on. I'm going to have to buy newer parts for the inside because I'm using most of my spare parts for the AC4 that you've seen earlier. And so that is the second project. Now moving on to the next potential project. Here we have a Hammond power transformer that I pulled out of a 50-watt Marshall that I'm rebuilding. This one had a kind of low secondary winding on it, and I wanted to give it a little more headroom and try to get rid of some of the mush that I was getting on the low end of that. Also, I had to mount this weird in the chassis, so I wanted to put the proper transformer in there. I bought a Hammond replacement, kind of. I've got a little video that talks about how you can't actually put a Marshall in a Mojo transformer in a Mojo Tone JTM 45 chassis. So I've replaced this transformer in the Marshall with a Baseman transformer. And so yeah, so here's the power transformer. I pulled this out of something I was upgrading. This choke came out of another Hammond organ. I actually got 2 Hammond organs gifted to me, and I tore them apart for parts. It was really sad that nobody would take the organs, so I had to just part them and throw them in the garbage. It was kind of sad to do that, but it's kind of what area we're in today. Yeah, so this, I have no idea how many Henrys this is. It's about 50 ohms, the DC resistance on this. And so this would work pretty good in the amplifier I have in mind. And what I want to do is kind of build a either an AC50 or a JTM 45. I actually have 2 sets of these. One, I don't have a power transformer, but I have another choke and I have another output transformer, which we'll talk about in a second. So I may actually build both an AC50 and a JTM 45. But the unique thing about this project is that rather than EL34s, I'm going to be using these 7591 output tubes. And the reason I'm using these is because I pulled these out of a Hammond organ. The 7591s have a 6.6K primary, and so there's not a lot of tubes that will fit with. So I might as well just build the amp with the 7591. So how does a 7591 AC50 or JTM 45 sound? You might just find out. Actually, I think earlier I lied, because sitting on the corner of the bench, you may have noticed, but probably didn't because I might not have the camera pointing there, is that here I have what I believe to be one of the last classic tone Marshall transformer sets. One of the reasons that I'm rebuilding my 50-watt Marshall that I've had for about 15 years, that I originally built, yeah, probably about 15, maybe even 17 years ago, is I always wanted to maybe do a better job. I mentioned the power transformer wasn't quite right, and as I started to look into some things, I thought I could probably do it better. And so kind of like the Vox JMI era AC15, I'm taking my old Marshall build, which is not a bad build. Looking at how I built that, I used really nice components. It's just not as Marshall correct as I thought it was when I was building it. So here we have Marshall correct transformer set from Classic Tone, and as soon as my 50-watt Marshall is repaired and it's working perfectly, then I will go ahead and start this build, ordering the parts and getting it up and working, when it's working perfectly, the original 50 watt is going to be sold, and then this will take its place. And now, last and certainly least, is the last transformer that I got in my shipment just a few weeks ago, and that is this little guy. This is a reverb transformer for a classic Fender amplifier, like a twin reverb or something. I'm really not a Fender aficionado, but this guy has a 25K primary and an 8 ohm secondary, usually used to drive a reverb pant. But if you pair this with a 12AU7 or one of those other lower gain 9-pin tubes or an octal equivalent, then you can drive a speaker with it and give it about 2 watts. As far as the power transformer, this I actually pulled from my very first tube amp that I ever built. This was supposed to be a copy of a Kalamazoo Model 1, and one of the weird things about this is it has a 380 volt center tapped primary, which was going to work really good for the Kalamazoo, but this only gives me about like 200 and something volts coming out once it's rectified. And so I wanted to use this in the Vox parts bin build, but I just couldn't ever get the math to line up to something that I really wanted that would give me the right plate voltage. So what I elected to do is to go ahead and buy this, pair it with this, and then the lower voltages will work really good with those Octaler Novel low power tubes. And I have no idea what I'm going to do for a preamp on this yet. One idea I had was my kids gave me this theremin kit. It's kind of a little kiddie kit, but I'm always talking about how cool theremins are. So maybe this will be the back end of my theremin build. And also I probably want to build this and run it through the 50 watt Marshall when either I get one, the really nice one built, or the one that I'm replacing repaired. So anyway, there you go. There's a couple of projects that I am looking forward to doing. This may take several years to do. I've had some projects that I've been working on for several years, doing parts here and there. I'm trying to kind of gear up for going out and doing some gigging and doing some recording. And so at the moment, since I don't have a lot of time, I am investing the time I have into upgrading my equipment to be ready for that. And also to have some fun along the way with parts I've had laying around for years, to turn it into something useful, and then probably sell it on eBay to fund future projects. So that's kind of the plan forward, at least in my mind, that I have right now. And in the comments, just kind of mention what you think I should work on next, and we'll give it a go. Okay, I have to apologize. I lied again. I'm just about ready to end the video. I look around the room, and what do I see but this? This was delivered about a month ago, during the time when wood was kind of scarce. It was hard to find these. What we have here is a B box, and what you get is you get the 4 sections of the outside of the B box, and I don't really know how this works, but essentially what you have here is a finger jointed sides of a cabinet, and if you are able to cut a baffle board and maybe some back panels, this makes for a quick and easy amplifier cabinet. A lot of people have used these for 1x12 cabinets, and I'm kind of not sure which project is going to get this. A twin AC10 would be really great. The problem I have right now is with the Hammond organs, they had the main amplifier that the 7591 tubes drove was a 15-inch speaker, and I didn't have any use for that, so I just threw it in the garbage, unfortunately. But I did get four. What the older Hammond organ had two Alnico 8-inch 8-ohm speakers, and the newer organ had two 8-inch 8-ohm ceramic speakers. So I've got four Hammond Pulse Seeking. I think those are Utah brand. And then I also have from other builds, things that I've upgraded, I have two additional 8-inch 8-ohm speakers. So with my transformers being 8 ohms, it would make it very difficult to try to make a twin out of 8-ohm speakers with the 8-ohm transformer. So if I happen to make a twin AC10, I will probably end up getting two 10-inch speakers. If I can fit it in this cabinet, I'll have to model it up and see if that will work. But the other thing I could use this for is the AC4. Again, I have the same problem that if I wanted to make a twin out of it, I would probably, well, I could make a 4x8 AC4. That would be something nobody else has. Anyway, but the idea is to kind of give this the concept of an easy build. I've kind of done a dry fit of these, and these boards have warped since they cut them. And so ideally, if you ran this through a planer, it might work well, but it's going to need some sanding. And so this is probably something I'm not going to work on until I have one of these amplifiers built. And maybe whichever one I build is going to dictate, maybe which one I build this into is going to dictate which of those project goes first. So I picked up from surplus from Mojo Tone this really nice looking, I think it's like an oxblood grill cloth with a gold stripe in it. It looks really great, and I think I've got enough left over for this, and if I use my Bombay mahogany gloss, this will have a nice shine to it. I fixed up an old tube radio with the same with this grill cloth and that gloss, and it looks really good. So I want to pair it with something that's going to sound good. So it could be that I have a twin AC4. It's probably more likely I'll have a twin AC10. And anyway, that's another fun project to add to the list of several projects that will probably take me years to complete.